Thank you. Thank you very much, Jason, for that really wonderful introduction. It's hard for me to describe in words the sense of pride and gratification and emotion that I feel in listening to these student scholars. And you should all understand that they are not unique among the many scholars. They are representative of all of them. They're really wonderful young men and women who I've been honored, along with you, to assist. Mary's father was my older brother, and everywhere that I went with him, he spoke for the first hour before I got to say a word. And I want to ask you if you saw any pattern in that in the family this evening. But I have to say, he was worth listening to, and so is Mary. So, Mary, thank you very much. I was really struck by Mary's words, but I was particularly struck by the fact that when she mentioned the Red Sox, the crowd applauded. And I'm going to call John Henry and Tom Werner tomorrow and tell them that this is the first round of applause the Red Sox have gotten since Labor Day. So thank you all for that. I hope each of you here will accept, in behalf of the scholars and students, my profound gratitude for your critical support for this scholarship program. This evening represents, for all of us, an opportunity to recognize, to thank, and to celebrate what has been accomplished in terms of these young men and women. I have a lot of people to thank, and I want to begin, as always, with one of my dearest friends and one of the men I most admire in all the world, and that's Tom Walsh, who, with his wife Linda and his son Mark, who's here this evening, extraordinary generosity has made possible this evening for each of the past 10 years. No person, no single person has been more consistent and substantial in support of this scholarship program than Tom Walsh. I know that Mary mentioned him, but I have to say, Tom, from the bottom of my heart, I thank you again for all you've done, and your generosity goes far beyond this program, but it's been immense, and I'd ask you and Mark to please stand. Mark, you're not Linda, but you'll have to do for tonight and get a round of applause. I want to thank the two new Pioneer Scholarship donors, David Reynolds and Felicity Kerr, here, and the members of the Lamb family, Mike, Michelle, and Melissa, who are up here. We're very grateful to you. It's a very central part of the support for our program. Special thanks, if I could, to Stuart Price and Linda Mitchell Price, my niece. They are the prime sponsors of the event this evening and have been very generous contributors to our program, and I'd like to ask Stuart and Linda to please stand and be recognized. Where are they? Thank you, Stuart. I'm deliberately not going to ask Linda's father, Paul, to stand, but Paul, we do thank you for siring Linda and for approving of her marriage to Stuart. It's been very helpful to our... This annual dinner provides an opportunity for me to acknowledge the hard work of the board. These men and women who serve on the board spend hundreds of hours each year as volunteers to review the applications, to raise the money, to guide the investment, and to to make certain that the program runs on an efficient and an ethical basis. And I'm very deeply grateful to the board and to the staff. And so I ask you to join me in a round of applause for these men and women who make this organization run. In 1994, when I decided not to seek re-election to the Senate and began to implement an idea that had been forming in my mind for some time, there was very little money and no knowledge available of what to do with it. So I contacted a number of friends and others who had knowledge in this field to ask them what they thought should be done, and I had a lot of guidance and help from many people, none more so than the man who was then serving as the Director of Admissions at Bates, Bill Hiss. And I was and am so impressed with Bill and his insight and skill in helping to create this organization that I asked him to become its first executive director. He declined. He said he wanted to stay at Bates, but he said, "I've got a good candidate for you." I said, "Who is that?" And he said, "My wife." And his wife turned out to be Colleen Quint, who had worked on my staff in Washington and who I knew was a brilliant woman, versed in the law and in education specifically, and it was a great and fortuitous opportunity that she joined as executive director and has served until now in that capacity. So Bill and Colleen are a wonderful couple, and they have had a very profound effect on both the creation, the shape, and the growth of the Mitchell Institute. And I ask you to join me again in a round of applause, thanking them very much for their great contribution. To Bill, Colleen, thank you. I've said many times publicly and on these occasions that after my family, this program is the most important thing in my life. And whenever I'm asked about it, and I am often about what I regard as my greatest accomplishment, I always say I sincerely believe it is this program. And my reference to my family is a sincere one because many of them are here tonight and they have provided tremendous support to this program, which continues. They've provided dedication, encouragement, financial contributions, and personal involvement, and that's meant a lot to me and to the Mitchell Scholars. There are several members of my family here this evening, and I'd like to ask them if they would all stand and please accept my thanks and our expression of gratitude. There are many college officials and other elected officials who join us in this celebration. I want to thank them for making time to be here this evening and for all you've done to help so many young people from Maine achieve their dreams. In particular, I'd like to recognize our former governor and my friend Joe Brennan, who is here with his wife Connie. Joe, would you please stand with Connie and be recognized right here. To the Mitchell Scholars here and to the students here, many of whom have asked me what the true meaning of public service is, I want to tell you a story about how I was appointed to the Senate by Joe Brennan, who was then the governor. And when he contacted me and asked if I would agree to be appointed, he said to me that I will make only two requests of you. First, he said, I'm merely passing along a request from Senator Muskie that you keep on his staff, as many of his staff members as possible, to which I readily agreed. And then he said, I ask only one more thing. I said, what is it? He said, I ask that when you serve in the Senate, you do everything you can that your conscience and your judgment tell you is best for the people of Maine and our country. And I will never ask you for anything else. And he never did. And I can say to you that it was one of the finest examples of me, and left an indelible mark on me of the true meaning of public service. The truth is, as his appointee, I would probably have done anything he asked me to do. That was obviously appropriate and legal. But he never did. He never once asked a thing except to use my conscience and my judgment as to what is best for the people of Maine. And so, Joe, I think I can say that in terms of pioneers in creating this program, if I had not been appointed to the Senate, there would not have been a scholarship program. And so in a real sense, all of these scholars owe a lot to you, as I do. Thank you very much, and please join me in thanking Joe Bennett.